potheads, it's Carla. I am here today in my kitchen for an excellent recipe from That Sounds So Good. It is one pot chicken and rice with a blender green sauce, and it is one of those dishes that attracts us so completely and totally because of the promise of one pot. And in that one pot, your protein and your carb are gonna cook together in harmony and come out perfectly. The truth is, it's really hard to do that. The chicken needs to be done at the same exact time as the rice has to be done. There has to be the right level of moisture. There's moisture coming out of the chicken. There's additional moisture that you add. I went through the trials and tribulations to figure it out so that you don't have to. And I go to the extra step to make the rice crunchy underneath, because who doesn't love crunchy rice? Here I am with my one pot, and I will say the selection of the pot is important. You want to find a heavy bottom pot with a lid. Hopefully that's already in your collection. The reason why it needs to have a lid is because it's going to get covered and we're going to capture the steam, and that's part of the cooking process. The other thing you want to look for in this pot is that you'll be able to fit the chicken hopefully in one layer without a lot of overlapping. If the chicken is overlapping, there's going to be the risk of some uneven cooking. So ideally the rice occupies its own plane, the chicken occupies its own plane, and together the steam is gonna move up and down and back and forth with the lid on there. I'm adding a tablespoon of fat. Recipe calls for oil. I happen to have a jar of pork fat, so I'm using it. And the first step is salting the chicken. So the chicken was salted ahead. These are 4 chicken leg quarters. So it's the thigh and the drumstick still attached. I use chicken legs because I just think dark meat is more delicious. It's more forgiving. It has more fat, and it's harder to overcook. I chose a pot where everybody fits pretty snugly. There can be a little bit of overlap at the end of the drumstick, but you do want to get most of the chicken thigh flesh directly against the pan. So I'm gonna let these go without messing with them, without turning them over, without shifting them around until I see a really nice golden brown on that skin side, which will take somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes. Chickens are looking beautiful. A key with searing is that you don't want to turn the chicken until it wants to turn over. So as soon as it's got browning, it's got crispiness, it's gonna naturally release from the pan. And if you're pulling up on it and it wants to stick, just give it an extra minute or 2. Okay, so now I want to pour off this fat so that I can get a measured amount of fat to use for the aromatics. So I started with 1 tablespoon of fat, and obviously you can see from what's in the jar how much fat has rendered from that skin, which is a fabulous and beautiful, wonderful thing that we should preserve. This is chicken schmaltz. It is liquid gold, and whatever you have left over, you're gonna save. All right, so now I'm going to add back 2 tablespoons of the fat that I just poured off. Not a lot of aromatics, not a lot of slicing and dicing in this recipe at all, but the ginger flavor with the chicken and the cilantro is kind of the foundational flavor in the dish. It smells so bright, so floral. It's like if there was a health food store that made ginger shots that was next door to a fried chicken place. That is the aroma. I'm now over medium heat. Smells great. Giving the ginger a pinch of salt. And as soon as you see that it is shiny, starting to turn brown around the edges, you have arrived. And it's time for the rice. I'm using jasmine rice, which is a long grain white rice. So now I'm toasting the rice in the chicken fat renderings with the ginger and a little bit of salt. This process, if you've ever made risotto, is really similar. Basically toasting the outside, the hull of the grain of rice to harden it a little bit, which is gonna help the outside and the inside cook at the same rate. So by toasting and drying out the surface, you are making it take a little bit longer to cook from the outside so that you don't have a mushy outside and an al dente center. Things are toasty, smelling delicious, nobody's burning, and at this point I want to spread the rice out in a even layer, just so there isn't a very thick area and a thin area. Now I can add the chicken back to the pan. This time it's gonna be skin side up, nestling them in their same configuration basically. As the chicken cooks, the juices are gonna release from the chicken, from the underside, that fleshy side. All of those juices are gonna drip down into the rice, creating like a really delicious chickeny liquid. I'm also adding a measured amount of water. And the pan's hot, so it's basically coming up to a simmer immediately. You want it to simmer before you close the pot. Before I cover the lid, I'm going to take half of my bunch of cilantro and just lay it over the chicken. And I'm keeping the stems on and everything because I'm going to simply remove this later. I did this for a couple of reasons. One is that the flavor of the cilantro is going to permeate the liquid, the rice, the chicken. It's all steaming together. They're giving, they're receiving. It's really a beautiful party in there. The other reason is that if I tell you to buy a bunch of cilantro, it's kind of a goal to have you use the entire bunch, because one of the top things that people complain about throwing away is half used up bunches of herbs. I'm just nudging the heat to where we're at a low simmer. I don't want it too fast, I don't want it too slow. Just a nice gentle simmer, and then throw the lid on the pot. It's a party in there. They're having their own party. It is private. None of us are invited. We're not looking at what they're doing when they're at the party. We're not talking to them while they're at the party. The only thing we might do while everybody is at the chicken party is rotate the pan, just so the party goers get a chance to mingle with other people on the other side of the pot. Other than that, stay here 26 to 28 minutes for perfect rice and perfect chicken. This is kind of a technique that I use throughout That Sounds So Good, which is to find moments of inactive cooking time and use that time to do other work instead of doing all that work at the beginning and then standing around doing nothing while your chicken cooks. So this is our little window, and I'm gonna start with the juice of 2 limes. Going right into a blender. This sauce is obviously influenced by guacamole because it's got avocado, lime, jalapeno, cilantro. So you have gingery vibes over here and more Mexican vibes over there. It's all good together. I'm gonna take a whole jalapeno. If you're using a spicier pepper like a serrano, maybe use half. And if you don't want your sauce to be spicy, then go ahead and take out the ribs and the seeds. This is the other half of the bunch of cilantro, and I'm just roughly chopping that to get it into smaller pieces, but I'm using the stems and everything because they're edible and delicious. I'm also dropping everything on the floor today. Now the moment of truth. Is my avocado ripe? Drum roll, please. Ta-da! You just know it's gonna be a good day when your avocado is ripe. I'm just gonna scoop out the flesh. The recipe calls for 1 avocado. That was a really small avocado, so I feel like bumping it up. Can lightning strike twice? That's the question. So I think I'm gonna add another half of an avocado. I can't look, I can't look, I can't look. I should play a lottery ticket today. Boopy boo. All right, I'm also gonna add just a little bit of water to get the blades turning. Season with salt. I do want the finished texture to be something floofy like this. It's kind of the texture of soft whipped cream or an extra fluffy sour cream. So it's not super dribbly and drizzly. It's more of a dollop situation. And then checking for salt. It's like this soft, innocent, sort of non-threatening texture that's followed up by very big, knock you around spice, which is a contrast I enjoy. After the party, there's the after party. This is the big reveal, everybody. The aromas filling up the kitchen are truly magical and exceptional. What I have here is beautifully cooked rice and beautifully cooked chicken. I have some spent cilantro. Thank you for your service. So the real magic of this recipe, like all cooking, is heat plus time. But the heat in this scenario is steam. And steam is a really powerful and amazing and efficient cooking medium. Steam is very high heat and it's very humid. So it cooks things quickly, but in a forgiving way where it preserves moisture. That moisture was key to cooking the rice. That steam was key to cooking through the chicken, which is now tender and succulent. And there was a lot of exchange of ideas up and down, back and forth through aromatic rice aromas, delicious cilantro aromas, chicken juices, like a whole situation. I have beautiful, steamy, brown, nice, lovely chicken. I have great, gorgeous, steamy, perfectly cooked, individuated, fluffy, chicken juice soaked rice. What I don't have is crunch. All I'm gonna do is kind of gently scoop the rice that came up the sides of the pot back to the center, loosen up everybody. And then I'm pouring back in 2 tablespoons of the rendered fat that we reserved from before. So this is schmaltzy and delicious liquid gold. I'm just kind of evenly drizzling it all over. Now I'm gonna cover the pot again, turn the heat up to high, and cook the rice in the fat so that the underside gets crispy and the top layer is gonna stay steamy and moist. So best of both worlds. That's gonna take a few minutes. Set your timer. Trust that the right things are happening at the right time, and come back in a few minutes. I'm ready to take a look. I hear very happy, moist, sizzling sounds. So without disturbing the rice too much, in order to check, what I'm doing is just going down with my spoon and sort of swiping the top layer of rice to the side until I hit the bottom. And I'm just looking to see that that layer of rice that's directly against the surface of the pan is browning, which is easy to see, it's showing through, and that it's crisp. So we have achieved crisp and browning, but you have to wait 3 minutes more. With the heat off, now there's just gonna be a buildup of steam, and that moisture is going to go down to that crispy layer, and it's just gonna help it release from the bottom of the pan. So this is a little bit like letting a paella rest before you scoop into it. It's a little bit like having a finished frittata, and before you go to cut it, you let it sit in the pan and it will shrink away. So the steam is going to kind of soften that bottom layer. It's still going to be crispy, but it's going to release a lot easier without a lot of like ice scraping going on. I was dancing at the party while the chicken was finishing and I spilled my drink on myself, but it's okay. It's a rave. Steamy delight. This is kind of the big reveal at the end of the party when you find out if your browning, steaming, crisping, followed by steaming has resulted in crispy rice that wants to release. Because that's what we're looking for when we go to the party, guys. It's just a whole big release. It's going to seem like you have to use more effort than you want to, but just go ahead and do it. So I'm angling my spatula underneath. You'll feel it release, kind of scrape and release, and then flipping it over to see the browning. I'm just gonna scoop this guy out. I mean, I almost forgot that the chicken existed. See how the dollop is a dollop? And I've got a little hot sauce too, because I wanna. So this green sauce couldn't have been more simple. If you want to amp it up and add a little garlic or add something else that pleases you, go right ahead. I would rather have my recipes be so simple that you're going to do your own thing with them than write an overly complicated recipe that then you have to figure out how to strip things away from. I think there's beauty in simplicity. So you can see like how moist and juicy that dark meat is. It's super succulent. I just drooled a little bit. Chicken, sauce, crunchies. I don't think I made this one since I've developed the recipe for the book. It's one of the recipes you worry about because of the timing, because of these little things, because of the ratios, the steam, the juices, the lid, the heat level. I cannot tell you how pleasing it is to make a recipe and promise all those things and have them actually deliver. And the fact that it's delivering for me in this self-aggrandizing journey that I'm on is truly fantastic. One pot, but many textures. So in this one pot riddle, I do feel that we have found the solution, and I hope you will make it too. You're worth it.